Welcome to the Jordan Talks Jiu-jitsu podcast, where Mike, Joey, and myself discuss all things grappling. All right, welcome to the Jordan Talks Jiu-Jitsu podcast with co-host Uki Mike and Joey Boretski. This podcast and me are sponsored by X Martial, and X Martial has really awesome rash guards. They've got awesome no-gi sets in general, street clothes, and you can buy the Limitless, the Limitless rash guards, Limitless t-shirts, and you can buy the T-Rex arms rash guard too. And it's just awesome stuff. Like, I wear it because I like it. You know, I wouldn't partner with a company that I didn't like. I didn't like their gear, so I really like their stuff, especially their shorts. Their shorts and the rash guards, they just fit so nice. Like, they got the short shorts I love to wear, and those like leopard ones they sent me, if I wear them, you know, they're cool. So we got a great episode for you today, and we'll start off with the same way we always do, talking about our weeks. And Joey's got a really interesting story about how he brought his wife to a tournament that that she didn't even know about. He just signed her up. So let's hear about that first.
Yeah, so just for a little background, like, my wife's been training for like 3.5 months now, I think, and she's getting pretty good. Like, we've been doing a lot of private lessons, and like, she has a lot of success in the gym. So I figured I want her to compete, but she's one of those people who's like never really done like an individual or even really like much of a team sport. So like, the idea of competing makes her like super nervous. And I knew that if I asked her to do it, she would say no, even though she'd do really well, just because she would get nervous about it. So I just signed her up for it and didn't tell her until basically we got to the tournament, and was like, hey, you're competing, so have fun. She was not happy at all with me, though.
But happy after, probably, because she got double gold. She got gold in her gi division and her no gi division. Yeah,
she ended up winning both divisions, and it wasn't really like close either. Like, I think she had one match in the gi that she won, I think 15-2, which the other girl got 2 points because she pulled guard. Well, like, my wife pulled guard while the other girl had like a grip on her hip, which was like not optimal, but like whatever, it didn't matter. And then she just ran through that. And no-gi, she had 2 matches. She submitted one girl and then won the other 16-0. And
wow,
I was like, but it was, the whole point of it was I wanted to show her, like, you can do this. Like, this was the worst case scenario for you. You had to go up a weight class. You had no like prep time. You didn't even know you were competing, and you did it and you won. And it wasn't really like you barely won. Like, you won pretty cleanly too. Like, you can do this. Wow. And I think it had the opposite effect, because now she's like, well, now I feel like I have to win if I ever do this again. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that is the problem. When you do well in tournaments, people expect you to always win. It's kind of a frustrating thing, because, you know, competing is hard, and just because you win a lot doesn't mean that it's not hard. So yeah, I can understand that mindset for sure.
It definitely is, but like, you try and explain to people, like, I don't think anyone wins every match. I don't know anyone who's competed more than like 4 or 5 times and never lost.
Exactly.
It's hard to do.
It's part about being a competitor. It's what I say, like, you know, jiu-jitsu competitors, they win, they lose, and that's just part of being a competitor, and it comes with the territory. So if you lose, you can't, be super sad about it. You just got to understand that's just part of it.
Yeah, and like, especially with jiu-jitsu too, where, if you compete a lot, there can be a lot of matches in one day, and like, little things can change the outcome of a match. Like, you don't necessarily have to be like worse than the other person to make one mistake and then lose or get stuck somewhere, especially at the lower belts like white and blue, where matches can be like really volatile. Yeah,
you can make one small mistake, because they make so many mistakes, lower belts do, so it gets capitalized on, and then you're screwed. And it's kind of funny, so many people, they overthink competing, and they over-prepare. No, I wouldn't say over-prepare, but they really try hard to prepare. And then, your wife just goes in, and no preparation whatsoever, no mental preparation, no physical preparation, and gets the job done. So
yeah, like, I've been like really working with her the last like month to like build a game plan, just without telling her that that's what we were doing. It was just kind of like, hey, I think you should work on this. And we kind of like, we built a game plan. She doesn't like takedowns at all. She hates the idea of takedowns, which is fine, because like we've talked about before, you don't need to be fantastic at takedowns, but we just built a game plan where she was going to pull guard right into sweeps. And I don't think she was on her back for more than like across the 3 matches, like 7 seconds, because she just pulled and swept instantly. And it was like exactly what we had trained, like pull, sweep, pass, mount, just good control. And if they give you a sub, you take it. If not, just control from mount. Like, you don't have to do anything crazy. I think that's a big problem a lot of white belts make when they compete, is they want the sub so bad that they're willing to just go for it, even when it's not set up right. And like, I really wanted to emphasize with her, like, take your time. Like, if you're in mount and someone's just not doing anything, it's hard to submit someone from the top in mount if they're just defending. So like, take your time, wait for it.
Yeah, and if you're in mounts, you have all the time in the world because you're probably winning at that point, right? You probably had to pass their guard to get there. You had to get to mounts and get your 4 points. So you're probably up at least 7-0. So there's no risk at all, and there's no you know, there's you don't have to like rush into it. You can take your time, and I think that's the best way to approach competing, is like rack up the points and then go for a submission, because sometimes people go for submissions off their back and then they get passed because like for a triangle, for example, a lot of times you go for a triangle and they escape. Well, now they're past your guard, so it can be such a risk. So I really like the game plan of getting points first and then having that looseness to get a submission, because you don't have to worry as much.
Yeah, and it worked out perfect too, like especially for her. Like she has really good top pressure for someone her size. So we got the points, and then there were a couple times where, you know, the person on bottom creates a scramble, and it was like our whole thing we worked on was just don't end up on the bottom, because she is like the smallest person in our gym. So she knows ending up on the bottom is really bad. So we've really worked on like, you have to be on top. And turns out it's actually really hard to lose a match when you're up a ton of points and you don't ever end up on bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Top position's best. You know, playing guard is fun, but you need to use your guard to get to top position. Top position is best for sure.
Yeah, I feel pretty hypocritical because all the game planning and strategy I give her, I do none of that stuff.
Yeah. So, it's a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing.
Yeah, it's learn from all the mistakes I've made for years and just be better than I was.
How were her nerves when she found out?
She actually handled it like a champ. Like the day she found out, I guess the day before the tournament. So it's funny. Like I was just at home. I had the day off work and I was on the computer and I heard the door open. And I went to be nice. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I just hear, what did you do? And I was like, and I'd forgotten that I like didn't tell her I'd signed her up. And I did. I was like, what did I do? And she's like, oh, I was looking at the brackets for the tournament to see what time you would be off. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
She's like, and to my surprise, my name was on the list. I was like, oh, that shit. And then she goes on this rant of like, well, you wasted money because I'm not doing it and all this stuff. And I never wanted to compete. I'm stressed and nervous and it's going to ruin the vacation. And then, about 20 minutes later, she goes, well, maybe I'll just do it. I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's not bad. Like, I figured she would come around eventually and be like, I can try it. I'm already signed up. And then it was probably later that night, she's going through the brackets again and goes, oh, I see you signed me up for no gi as well. I was like, I thought you knew. I thought you scrolled all the way down. She's like, no, I stopped at gi. I was like, well, have fun. More matches for you.
Yeah, you can't get in trouble twice. You're already in trouble for gi. So
she already got mad at me. So it worked out well. But she ended up doing both. And I told her, like, for people who might be like, oh, she didn't want to do that and you signed her up to do something. I was very clear with her, like, if we get there that day and you just go, I don't want to do this, you don't have to do it. Like, I can't physically put you on the mat and make you do it. But, like, now if you want to do it, here's the opportunity to do it. And we showed up and, like, I guess for reference, the last few tournaments I've gone to, we always watched her division just to see, like, what the girls did, like how big they were, the size, see like the stuff. So we could kind of game plan around like, oh, this keeps happening in a lot of matches. So we're going to build a strategy to deal with this because if you do compete, it's really likely to happen to you. And every tournament we've watched, she's looked at the girls and gone, they're not really doing anything that like, I don't think I could deal with. Like they're not doing anything fancy or anything like wild that I've never seen before. And I'm always like, well, then you should have just done the tournament. So this time I was like, I'll sign you up. And that way, if you see them and you're like, they're not that big, they look manageable, just do it.
Exactly. Because sometimes like I go to a tournament and like, I really want to compete. Like I got like the fire when I'm there, but like leading up to it, it's like, I don't really want to do it. So it kind of is a cool thing. You have to do it that way. A little risky for sure, but
yeah, she made me promise never to do it again. So I kind of had to concede that like, all right, I did it once, but now it's gonna be hard to try to get her to do it again. And like just like the more, it's like anything, the more you do it, the better you're gonna get at it. And now that you got the first one out of the way and the experience and it went really well, like keep trying, keep doing more, keep getting that experience, and you're only gonna get better and better at it.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And before we go into some viewer questions, we just want to also give Leandro Lo some love. Leandro Lo, he was killed on the weekend. A really awful thing that happened to him. And I think some of the current generation of jiu-jitsu practitioners don't really understand like some of like the legends in the sport, just how impactful they were. Because Leandro Lo coming up, he was just like, I don't have a lot of idols in jiu-jitsu, but I really idolized Leandro Lo and learned from his passing style so much. And it was really, just celebrity deaths never really bothered me. But then, you know, when it's someone you're actually attached to, it's like, wow, it really felt bad, and just an awful thing that happened. And so yeah, big respect to Leandro Lo, legend of the sport, and yeah, his name will be remembered forever for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll get into some viewer questions. This one is from, this one's from Grant.
Hey, Jordan. My name is Grant. And first of all, I want to say thank you for putting out the content that you do. It's truly unparalleled. So great work. Please keep it up. Much appreciated. Training at a gym down here in Houston, Texas. I'm a blue belt, kind of, you know, approaching 40. A lot of competitors at the gym, including myself. And my question is in regards to training intensely. So as competition comes up, the intensity in the gym goes up. All the training, you know, partners are pushing it a lot. And my question was specifically about training in the zone of exhaustion. So to what extent is it useful to, you know, train in that zone, push yourself to the point where you feel like you just want to quit because you don't have enough energy or whatever it is, and to push through that? So kind of a general question, but wanted to get your thoughts on it. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is a really good question. A lot of people probably don't know the answer. And the answer is basically, like, I don't think it's the best approach, because it's very similar to lifting, where it's like you don't want to do your 1 rep max every time you lift. Like, and that'd be the same kind of thing where you're going to complete exhaustion and you keep training through that. You're just doing your 1 rep max basically. And there's better and smarter training approaches that you could take. Like, you know, you do want to, you know, push yourself at times. That's definitely important, but you know, it's just, there's like, you want to do the minimal effective dose. And when you just train like through exhaustion, you're just past the minimal effective dose, and it's not going to help you as much as having a more structured way to improve your cardio. So yeah, I'm not like a big fan of that approach, because you're also going to be super tired, and it's dead the next day. It's going to fry your central nervous system. But I think that there is benefits to it, like the sense that it's good mentally to be like, to know that you can still perform somewhat when you're just absolutely dead tired. But in terms of physical adaptations, there's definitely better ways of approaching it for sure. And what I do when I am leading up to a tournament, I definitely pick up the pace in my rolls. I try to roll like and get super tired, but not where I'm just like completely fried. I think that's not a great approach. What do you guys think?
What about interval training, like 2 light rounds, 1 heavy round, 2 light rounds, 1 heavy round, kind of cycle like that?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. It depends on your training partners and everything. Like, you know, what you want to do is you want to have like high days and low days. So high days, you have like really hard rounds. Maybe that's when you do your lifting too. And then the next day after that's going to be a low day where you kind of roll with like lighter people and don't roll as hard, because you need to recover, because all that adaptations are in the recovery. So you can train super hard and you're not going to actually benefit from that if you don't recover. So people that do everyday pojada, which is basically train hard every day, it's not like the wrong approach, but is it the most optimal approach that's best for your body and you're going to have the best adaptations? Probably not. You want to have high and low, and that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. Like I do, like I train 6 days a week. I do 3 hard days, 3 easy days. I find that works. On the hard days too, like there's a difference between going to the point of like absolute exhaustion and going to the point of being like really tired where you say, I want to quit. And usually what I tell people like is, if you've rolled like maybe you're 5 rounds in and you're like, I'm really tired, like I don't want to do another round, find a partner who's cool and just say, listen, I'm exhausted. Just do what you can that round. Like maybe it's you're like, I'm just going to try to survive, but like that every little time you push yourself just a bit, like not to the point where you're like throwing up from exhaustion, but just a little bit where you kind of want to quit, but you give it a little bit more. It just, that makes your cardio better. It makes your endurance better. It makes your ability to survive under that pressure better. And I find like for me personally, like I find a lot of my flaws in my game when I'm tired and getting lazy, because like it's hard. A lot of jiu-jitsu is hard. Like you're on the bottom, you know, you're trying to make frames. When you're exhausted, it's really easy to just not put a frame up, but then it's really noticeable because you're going to get smashed. So training when you are tired does have a lot of value, but it's important to recognize when it's too much.
Yeah, exactly. And in the Jedi video I just did, I mentioned that, you know, in jiu-jitsu is very important to do what's right and to be disciplined to do what's right, even if it's hard. And, you know, when you're tired, that's like the best case to do it, because it's really hard to do what's right when you're tired, but you need to do it to have success in jiu-jitsu. And, you know, I just want to do another comparison basically to running. So like, you know, marathon runners, they don't run like, well, I don't want the marathon runner is probably not a good example, but like someone doing like 10K, it's not like they run for like 4 or 5 hours, just complete exhaustion, and they do that every single time. They might do those long runs, but they also do, fartlek training, which is like when you go fast and slow. They might do sprints where you do more interval style. It's not just, you can't just like run like for as long as possible to complete exhaustion. I think that's you're gonna have the best adaptation. So very similar to rolling in that sense. There is a benefit of incorporating getting super tired, but there's also benefits of other ways to increase your aerobic capacity. So people often think that doing more jiu-jitsu is the best way to get good jiu-jitsu cardio, but that's only true when you're like beginning and you don't have great technique. It's way better to focus on jiu-jitsu itself. But someone like me, rolling more isn't necessarily going to be the best way to spend my time, my energy to increase my cardio. I need to do things like sprints and slow and steady running too, like run for like an hour, a couple days a week, and just slow and steady, not bring my heart rate up too much, go for sprints. And, in those sprints, it's not like you just sprint for like an hour and you just like nonstop sprint, take a minute off, sprint. You got to be smart about it. You sprint, take like 3 minutes off, do another sprint, take 3 minutes off, and then take like 15 minutes off, and then do your next your next interval. So you need to, especially with things that are like that higher energy demands, you need to take the rest period. It's just like when you lift, you need to take time off, or time between your sets. So yeah, and when you're just rolling, just nonstop, crazy hard, and for like hours or two, whatever it is, yeah, it's just, the professional athletes don't take that approach. So, there's nothing different about jiu-jitsu in that sense, for sure. So strength and conditioning is such a complex topic, and I've read so much, like I've researched so much, because my problem is like, I don't have great cardio. So like I've read like Joel Jamieson's his book on conditioning, MMA conditioning, and I've read that like 3 times and like studied everything I can about it. And it's just the more I learn, the more I realize it's such a complex topic.
I think it's hard too, because like what works really well for one person might not work at all for another person. Like you mentioned running, like I can't run at all. If I ran half a K during the day, I wouldn't be able to train at night. I have bad knees. I got a bad hip. Like I'd be worn out. So like I have to find other ways to incorporate like cardio into my jiu-jitsu to like actually get better at it. And for me, like that is just rolling more, but I change the way I roll to do it. So like I have like on nights where I want to work my cardio, I have a thing I do where I'll pick mostly smaller opponents, and I set like a little mini rule for myself where I can't stay in one position for more than 15 seconds. I have to move. Like if I get mount and I can't finish in 15 seconds, got to move to somewhere else. And it keeps me honest. It keeps me moving rather than like just doing lazy jiu-jitsu and rolling for 50 rounds to try and get tired. I'm trying to maximize like the amount of cardio that I'm getting in the rounds I have.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can use jiu-jitsu to mimic different types of workouts. So just say I could roll with like lower belts, and I could like, I could keep my heart rate around 120 to 150 the whole time for like an hour. But then if I roll higher belts, it's going to go higher. So it's a different adaptation that is happening, right? Because slow and steady basically increases like the size of your heart, how much blood it can pump. And then more like high intensity training, more working your anaerobic system, that's more like how much energy your muscles can store. So it's super complex, and I can't explain it all in a podcast. But it's an interesting subject for sure. So we'll take a question from Sam.
Hi Jordan, it's Sam from the UK. I DM'd you on the weekend thanking you for your videos and your help in order for me to get second place in a competition. I was a weight class above which I normally compete in. So thanks again for all your help. I just had a question about side control, specifically getting stuck in bottom side control when your opponent's heavier than you. Do you have any recommended escapes or anything? Because I try my escapes, but they only seem to work on people the same weight as me or maybe lighter people.
Yeah, so like escaping side control is really hard, especially when the people are bigger than you, and that's just a reality of jiu-jitsu and a reality of life. And what you can do, well, the most important thing to do, and I'm going to include this, I got a video coming out soon. It's called How to Literally Never Get Submitted in Jiu-Jitsu, and it's going to be my best video ever, and it goes over this. So basically, when you get put in a bad position, the first thing you want to do is to improve your grips to make sure that you're in a spot where they can't attack you very good, which is like, stay nice and tight, elbows tight. And what the most common problem, white belts and blue belts and purple belts, even brown belts and black belts, what they do is when they get their guard pass, they take bad grips. So they'll reach over the head, and the person can control their head. They'll reach over and let them have an underhook. So in side control, to control someone well, you want to have a cross face and an underhook, right? So the opposite of that's true to defend. You can't let them get those positions. So as soon as someone passes, you need to improve your grip situation. So a really good example is the Bernardo Faria roll I had. And when he would pass, I wouldn't take these like dumb grips that are gonna get me screwed, right? I would just right away, I got to take good grips so I can escape easier. So that's like a huge problem people have. Because I think one problem too is because side control is taught like this is side control. They grab your head and they take an underhook. So people just naturally go there when they're in the bottom of side control. They'll just, have these grips. They don't understand. No, you need to improve right away. You need to keep your elbows tight. And that's one thing that'll help right away. Because if they have an underhook on you and your arm's on behind their back, man, it is so hard to escape. You can put like a white belt on me, and that's heavy and has been training at least a little bit. And if I got my arm on that side of them, I don't know if I'm going to be able to escape. I'm going to do everything I can to make some room, but it's going to be freaking hard. So yeah, you can't let people do that.
No, that's really true. I'll give like the cop-out answer that every coach gives that people hate is like, don't get caught in side control. But I don't mean that in like a facetious way of like, have an amazing guard that no one can pass. I mean, when someone starts to pass and it becomes very clear that they're passing your guard, instead of doing what a lot of people do where they kind of accept like this person has side control now, don't let them get a good side control. Like you said, like if you let them get the grips and get the control, it's a nightmare to get out of side control, especially for a small guy. You have to constantly, like the moment, one thing I do is like when I realize people are starting to pass, I'm already trying to get on my side and get my frames in so that even if they do try to settle their weight, they don't really have a good position. And it's a lot easier to get out of like a half position where no one's really settled anywhere and there's no good control. My hips are still free to move and I have frames. So like just realizing that like just because they're passing doesn't mean you have to accept side control. They can pass and you can end up with a much better position.
Exactly, 100%. And you have to think of where are your options when someone puts you in side control. So if you can't go down because the mat is in the way, right? And you can't go up because gravity. If you turn away from them, they can take your back. So the only option is turning onto for the most part, the only option is turning towards them and getting on your side. So understanding you need to get on your side for most escapes should help you realize that you cannot let people grab a crossface, because if they grab a crossface, then it's very hard to turn on your side, because where the head goes, the body must follow. So, you're already screwed in that sense. And then again, if you let them get the underhook on you, then you really can't turn on your side. So knowing that you can't turn on your side with those grips, what else are you going to do? Like, you're screwed. So you can't let them take those grips. And it's a lot easier to implement than people would think. It's just like, again, you start to get your guard passed. First thing, improve your grip situation. Don't do anything else. And yeah, like you said, like work to get on your side, and you make sure, they can't get to a good spot. That's so important. And but in terms of specific escapes, bumping and shrimping is definitely harder against big guys, because it's hard to, get that big bump, but you can still do it. But I really like taking underhooks on them and coming up to my knees. So that's my favorite way to escape side control. But I'm like good at getting on my side into my knees. Like, I have powerful hips, so that's something that helps me a lot. But just the reality of jiu-jitsu, you need to get on your side. That's what you need to do. So we'll take a question from Keaton.
Hey, Jordan, my name's Keaton. I've been training in jiu-jitsu for a little over a year now. I just want to say I love the podcast, I love the channel. Your content is just absolutely A1 superb, and it's been really helpful with my development and my game. My question for you today is, when you were a white belt and say early blue belt as well, did you ever worry about becoming a one-trick pony? I find that when I roll, I can land triangles really consistently from the various positions. But when I attempt other submissions like arm bars or kimuras and Americanas, I can't get them to stick. So would you say put the triangle game down for a little bit and work on the other stuff, or just keep doing what I'm doing and let the other stuff come as it does? Once again, thanks for your time, and keep making the awesome content. Have a good day.
I actually had this problem. I was a one-trick pony. So I was doing the lockdown and the electric chair, and I was subbing a bunch of people until it didn't work anymore. I didn't work on other things, and that was the only thing I was good at. And then once everybody caught on to how to defend that, I was screwed. Yeah, that's the good thing about being a one-trick pony in one sense, is that you make your training partners better defending it. Yeah, exactly. So I get where this guy's coming from. I had to switch up my game and start learning focusing more on other things.
Yeah, when I was a white belt, and even now, I just like loved arm bars. I don't love them as much anymore because I find them a little boring for the channel. Because I've had people say, "Oh, you got to vary it up. You do too many arm bars." I'm like, "Well, you are right. I do too many arm bars." So I got to. I have been switching up more. But yeah, when I was a white belt, it was just so many arm bars. Like my first 2 tournaments that I won gold, it was 4 arm bars in a row each tournament, so eight arm bars. And it's good to have something you specialize in, but to progress to really become like a competent black belt and grappler, you need to switch it up. So I think the best thing to do is always specialize in something for a little bit. So maybe like 3 months, 6 months, and then move on to specializing in something else. So once you have all these, basically you collect specialties. So now you're not like a jack of all trades. Now you specialize in everything. So that's been like what I've done. So, and why I become very technical, because I mentioned it before, maybe I'll spend some time. Well, I did do this. I spent time specializing on like front chokes, like the guillotine, darces, and that kind of stuff. I spent time specializing in leg locks. That's all I did for a long time. And the same thing with arm bars and rolling back attacks. I would just specialize just doing that nonstop and doing truck type stuff. And then I have all these components of my game now, and I think that is the best way to really build a solid game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that, but it's important for for the question to remember, like, you are a white belt. You're not expected to be amazing at everything. If you were, you wouldn't be a white belt anymore. So like, it is good to have that one thing you're really good at, and don't completely neglect that area. That's one mistake I see a lot of people make when they're really good at something and then they decide they want to get better at other things, is they just stop doing that forever. And it's like, well, no, that's good to have. Like, that's great to have, especially if you want to compete or something like that, to have that thing you can fall back on that you're really good at. But try to add in other stuff around it slowly, and eventually, you can build those other things up to the same level as your triangle game.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's bad to specialize at all as a white belt. I think that's like a really good thing for sure. But triangles, like, I just think they're so, like, I'm not a huge fan of triangles from the bottom. It's because I think that they're risky. So I see all the time people go for triangles, the person escapes, and now they have the guard pass. So it's like, is that the best technique to use in like a tournament? Do you want to take that risk? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good too. In rolling, it's fine for sure. What kind of things have you specialized in, Joey?
I used to do a lot of leg locks. I used to really be into the leg lock game. I've actually really gotten out of that. Like, I don't leg lock much at all anymore because like you said, like, I'm trying to make sure my game's not like too skewed to one thing where if I can't employ that, I just lose. So I'm really trying to balance out my game. But I've had phases where I love triangles. And like you said, though, I lost a lot of matches because, you pull guard, you try for your triangles, and maybe I don't get them. Or I come close on like 7 triangles, and then the guy passes off of one of them, and I'm like, cool, I almost submitted him 7 times, but I just lost by 3 points because I didn't submit him.
Exactly. One time I was competing in a tournament. It was the finals in blue belt, and I had this guy in a triangle for like 5 minutes. No, it was not 5 minutes, maybe like 4 minutes. A long time. Had him in a triangle, and I was squeezing so hard, and I couldn't get him. And then my legs were so gassed, and then he escaped and put me in side control in the last like 30 seconds, and then it was over. I lost. It was really frustrating because I was like, I was beating you the whole time in this triangle, but yeah, shit happens for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guard is good. Like, it's really good to have a lot of attacks from your bottom and be able to submit from there. But I don't know if, like, for competition or even for, like, other things like, self-defense or MMA, like, I don't know if that's the most optimal strategy. I really do believe the guard should be, like, a fallback. Like, I want to play on top. I want to sweep. I want to have, like, be in the good positions where I can do what I want really without repercussion. But if I have to play off my back, I do still have that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as a lower belt, I probably would have disagreed because I was wrong. But like when I was a lower belt, I just wanted to play guard all the time. I just had a lot of fun playing guard. I was better at guard than passing. And but now that I'm a black belt and I feel like more just mature in my grappling and my mentality itself, I really understand that the guard is not where you want to be. Again, it's just like it helps you get to where you want to be. You want to be on top. And if you watch my people, I'm sure most people that listen to the podcast watch the channel. Like, think about how many times you see me submit people off my back. It's like not a lot, but I can do it. But like my mentality is always sweep, pass, and then submit. So, just because, again, just risk and trying to submit from your back. But I really do. I do enjoy getting submissions from my back, but I just, I think the better strategy is to sweep from your back and then submit on top.
at both your levels now, do you guys have anything in particular that you guys are working on?
Yeah, I'm trying to work on body lock passing just because, Gordon Ryan's just like killing it with that. But I'm just having a hard time with it. Like I can control people really well with the body lock, but it's just like getting past that bottom knee to pass. I find it very hard. So just because you lock yourself, you like immobilize yourself too. You immobilize them, but you also immobilize yourself. So I've been watching his instructional, trying to figure it out, and I just haven't been having a ton of success. So that's a little frustrating, but not like things are bad happening. It's just like I feel like I'm not progressing the roll great. And so it's just slowing it down. And I'm such a dynamic grappler that it's like, if I'm in one spot for like 20 seconds, that's too long, right? So that's the only thing I'm really working on. And Joey, not to answer for him, but I think it's really interesting that I find his game has just exploded lately, like getting so much more technical and really changing his game. Like he was doing a lot of 50-50 like for a long time. And it was just like, okay, I know what to expect now. But now he's really changing it up and giving him more of a challenge that way. I think the only thing you're lacking, Joey, is just the physicality. So I don't know, like, because I am much bigger than you and I can really feel it nowadays. So because Joey's shrinking and I'm kind of growing. So it's like, it's just tough because I feel bad, like, holding really tight. I think Joey maybe got hit the weights or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I got to get on some of that Gordon Ryan sauce, whatever he's got going on. I need some of that. But I don't mind it. Like when you like hold me down, like it's good for me because I like competing, and I know if I can deal with that from someone like you who's a lot heavier and stronger than me and really technical, like when I fight someone my own size who's technical, it's just not going to feel the same. And I've actually like the last few matches I've done at the tournament that I signed my wife up for, I also competed, and I fought probably one of the most successful guys to ever come out of Canada in the gi, and the match was really competitive. Like I kind of counted myself out. Like I have a weird problem where sometimes, you say like, you always tell yourself like I can win, but then you're like, man, look at everything he's won. Can I really beat this guy? And I was surprised during the match where I was like, this is surprisingly winnable. Like I made a couple bad decisions and I lost by, I think like 5 points or something like that. But he passed my guard once and I managed to re-guard no problem. I was like, oh, like Jordan holds me in side control and I have a hard time getting out, but sometimes I can do it. This is not like that at all. Like I feel fine. I'm comfortable. Like I'm not really worried at all. So like, it's really good for me that you do that stuff because it makes my life easier when I actually have to compete against people my size.
Yeah, I mean, it always helps knowing that your training partners are going to be more of a challenge than your competitors out there. I remember when I was a blue belt, and Miles, who we talked about on the channel, he was like almost getting his purple, but he was a blue belt too, and he would just like smash the shit out of me, and I would just know, well, at least it's not going to be, no one's going to beat me. I'm worse than Miles, so like it kind of gave me a little bit, made me feel a little better and give me confidence. I think it is nice too. Sometimes you go out there and compete or roll someone that's really good, and you realize, okay, there's nothing special about them. They're not like some anomaly. They do the same type of things we do, and they got the same techniques in their arsenal. And I've had a lot of experiences like that, like where I kind of like, kind of worried. I didn't really know how the roll would go. And then it happens. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing great. The level isn't far off or whatever.
Yeah, it was really nice to see that. Like maybe I'm not quite on that level yet, but like I'm not nearly as far off as I thought. And it's a good feeling to be like, maybe I'm not like the absolute elite in like the local scene, but like I can see the path to getting there now. And it's, it makes a little more sense. Like I don't feel like I'm so far away I could never compete with these guys. It's like, well, now I know what I have to work on and I know where I got to go.
That's how I felt every time I competed or rolled with someone that was like really high level, like coming up. And I could always feel like, okay, you can get me now, but I'm going to surpass you. Like I can feel it. I can feel like we're close now. And I've been training way less time and I got the mentality to improve. So there has been so many times like that. And, I've always proven myself right. So, I just want to keep improving. And yeah, I've got so many plans for myself. I think I can do very well if I start competing like internationally. And because I know that the level, I know I'm at that level. So yeah.
Have you started training for your fight coming up?
No, just because I was sick all last week. So it really sucks accepting a super fight or a fight in general, and then you're sick and can't train. So I was sick all earlier this week. So I haven't been able to, and even like last 2 days, I was training, but I just felt super zapped. And I'm still recovering from being sick. So I'm looking to start like officially like next week. And I think the only way I could lose that match, and not to sound like I'm talking down about Cesar, is I think the only way I can lose is if I don't prepare physically. So if I don't get my strength up a little higher, and if I don't make sure my conditioning is perfect, then there's a risk of losing. But I think that technically I don't have anything to worry about, and I just need to pace myself too. And yeah, I'm very confident going into that match. But he's a great competitor and not to be overlooked for sure.
I can't wait to watch it.
It's going to be fireworks because, man, he's a big, strong dude. And, you know, I just think that he's going to go for it. I'm going to go for it too. And everyone's going to really enjoy that match.
When's the date of it again?
October 28th. And it's Extreme Couture in Etobicoke. And the promotion is called ASG, All Submission Grappling. And the belt, it's called the Champion of the North, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I'm excited to get that belt because, yeah, I need another belt for my collection for sure. So we'll take a question from Wiley.
What's up, Jordan? I was wondering what your least favorite submission to hit on other people is and your least favorite submission to get put on you.
So my least favorite submission to be put on me is like any choke. I hate getting choked because I just feel like it's the most like demeaning like way to get submitted. But not that it is demeaning, it's just like it's the most like I don't mind getting armbarred or leg locked, like well I don't like it, but when you're in like a fully locked in bow and arrow choke, you just feel like, oh god, and like life sucks right now. Right? So yeah, probably like bow and arrow chokes specifically. Like I hate getting put in bow and arrow chokes. It's been a long time. Rear naked chokes don't feel good either. It feels like, you know, they got you good and, you know, nothing you can do. In terms of like what submission I hate getting on people the most or dislike, it's definitely arm bars lately, just because again, I just feel like I do them so much, but I'm just good at them. So, but it's just like, okay, another arm bar. I'm going to get more variety on people. So yeah, I would say that. And, you know, maybe like just wrist locks, just in the sense that or twisters too. I don't think that there's anything wrong with them. I think it's so weird that there's like this taboo to them. I think to me, they're just another submission, but like, I always worry if the person thinks it's cheap that I got it. So they're like, oh, just the wrist lock, or you did twister on me. Like, what the hell, you know, but you know, it's all fair game.
The one that I hate getting the most is a wrist lock because I have bad wrists. Mm-hmm. And the one I love getting the most is the twister because I find it's the most demeaning of all. And I find it funny. I don't like demean my training partners, but I think it's funny because they always laugh when I get it. Or when I get caught in it, I laugh too. Alexi caught me in one and I laughed. We had a good laugh about it just because it's almost a degrading submission, you know?
Well, sometimes when I go to another gym or whatever, like I'll do twisters on them and I'm just like kind of feel a little awkward, you know, like, oh God, like don't think I'm a dick or anything, you know?
I did a twister and there was a black belt from another school watching and he looked at me, he goes, did you just do a twister on somebody? I go, yeah. He goes, you know, he shook his head and walked away. And we're both blue belts, and you know, we're not going to hurt each other. We know when to let go.
Man, you cannot throw on a twister fast. No. It is impossible. Like the person can tap way before it gets fully locked in. So if someone gets hurt from a twister, it's their own fault.
Yeah, they didn't tap.
Exactly. You can tap so early. As soon as the hand goes behind your head, you can tap.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, they don't need to lock their hands up. So I just think it's so silly, you know, saying certain submissions are wrong or bad or cheap, because unless it's something that you do throw on extremely quickly and they got no time, how is it any different from any other submission? I mean, yeah, a twister can break someone's back, but I mean, a heel hook, well, yeah, some people don't like heel hooks either, but like an arm bar, you know, you can break someone's arm. That's bad too. And you know, arm bar is more risky because you can throw that on faster. Twister, you cannot throw on fast unless you have it locked up and then you just twist fast. But again, they can tap before it's locked up. So
I just like it because every time anybody ever gets caught in a twister, everybody laughs about it because it's just a fun, kind of shitty submission to get caught in.
And it's kind of silly.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like it. Yeah.
And it's legit too, because like from the truck, I think it's the best submission. I'll either go calf slicer or twister depending on what they're giving me. But like a groin stretch is hard to do. And I think it's just a legit submission. And just like, it makes sense to go for it because it's not overly hard to get, like no harder than any other submission to get. So yeah, it's just another submission. People are so strange.
I take it straight from the back. When I have their back, I let go of the one hook and then right there, straight into the twister. Yeah.
Exactly. What about you, Joey? What are your thoughts?
I'm the opposite of you guys. My favorite submission is the wrist lock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Screw both you guys. I love the wrist lock. No, I'm really terrible at breaking people's grips, and I just like finishing people with wrist locks because then I know every time they grab me or put their hand near me, they're going to think in the back of their head, like, maybe I don't want to put my hand here. And that little hesitation makes it easy for me to not get gripped. I should probably just work on breaking grips instead, but this was easier for me, so I did that. My least favorite one to get caught in is probably Darce choke, because I get Darce choked a lot, and I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate that choke. I hate everything about it.
Yeah. Well, especially like when someone's like belly up for darce, I think that's even worse because you just feel like there's nothing I can do right now. Like the worst any submissions where you feel like it's just checkmate and it's like, oh God, I'm gonna have to tap. So.
Yeah. And my problem with darce too is like I've gotten just good enough at defending darces that it takes a really long time for people to finish me, but not quite good enough that they're not going to finish it.
Yeah.
So what happens is I really like to play games where like I scoot underneath people, they grab a darce, and then I spend like a minute and a half defending this darce choke from all these horrible angles until eventually I tap. And I always think to myself, like, why didn't I just tap when he locked it on? It was done. I like when you darce choke me, like I know it's probably done in the end, but I'll fight it for like a minute of just awful suffering.
Yeah, it's good though. It makes my technique better, right? Because if you tap before I can really get it perfect, then my technique won't develop as much. So I appreciate you getting choked and being in uncomfortable positions because it sucks defending. It sucks defending submissions. It sucks being in a choke specifically, and you're like, I don't want to tap, but I also don't want to endure this, So like triangles suck, man. It sucks being put in a triangle and like you can breathe this a little bit, but you can barely breathe, and it feels so bad. For sure.
I would rather have it just choke me and tap instantly than where it's just enough to give you the hope where you're like, this is awful, but I can still kind of breathe a little bit. So I'll just tough it out. Just tap me, please.
Man, I remember, sorry, Mike, I remember as a white belt, I think Joey was a white or blue, and he put me in a triangle. It was like a match in front of the whole gym, which was a small gym, but we did like a mock match, I think, and you put me in a triangle, and I was in it for like 3 minutes or something like that, and it was just like, it was so tight, but I could just barely breathe, but man, after it was my brain fried. Like, I don't think that's good for your brain whatsoever.
You're a nice enough guy though that I have bad wrists, so you've never tried to wrist lock me after the first time, and I said, hey man, I got bad wrists, can we not do that?
Yeah, we actually have like a deal where like I won't even try, I won't threaten them, I won't fake them, I won't do anything because I know you have bad wrists. And like I think that's really important for most training partners. Like if you know you have a training partner who has an injury somewhere, just don't do the submission, man. It's not necessary.
Oh yeah, if somebody's got a bad neck, I'm not going to try to twister them. It's only like people I really like that I twister.
Yeah, how many times I've like, heard stories of like, I told this person that, not to attack this, or maybe it's like wrapped up or something and they attack it right away. It's like some people have a weird mentality that way where it's like, they're almost like attracted to it. Like,
didn't you get your knee scoped and then somebody tried to sneak a heel hook on you like 7 days later or something?
Yeah. Don't get me started. So, man, I just had knee surgery and I came back to training 8 days later, which is like crazy, but I was fine. I knew it because they just took out a piece of meniscus. They didn't like repair it. And then I was rolling with this white belt. He was a white belt, and he put me in a clover leaf. It was like, I think at that point it was 10 days past surgery, and he put me in a clover leaf submission, like it's a leg lock. And then I had to tap him. I'm not going to risk this. And then afterwards he got me and everything. I'm like, you mother. I was like, what the hell, man? I just had knee surgery and you're attacking my legs. Like, it's just, that's not great etiquette for sure.
I'd agree.
Especially coming back so early. It's like, I need to be extremely careful. So it's like, guys, don't touch my legs. I just had knee surgery. But yeah, it's just the way she goes sometimes. So this one's from Rob.
Hey, Jordan, what's up? How do you balance strength conditioning, specifically bodybuilding type exercises that make your muscles sore, with training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Thanks.
Yeah, so the most important thing, like we talked about earlier, is to do high and low days. And I don't think bodybuilding is like the best approach for, the way you're going to lift to get better jiu-jitsu. The better thing to do would be more of like a powerlifting approach, but without like training like a power lifter. I mean, you can't like just completely demolish your body and try and expect to, be able to perform still in jiu-jitsu. I think if you lift weights along with your jiu-jitsu, you need to like tone it down. You can't lift as if you're not doing jiu-jitsu too. You need to you can't do too much. You got to prioritize one thing. You got to prioritize jiu-jitsu or prioritize strength. You can do both, but you can't prioritize both and expect to have great adaptations in both.
Yeah, I think that's like a really interesting way phrased. Like you can only prioritize one. Like you can do both things, but you got to pick one that's the priority. And is it jiu-jitsu or is it getting real big?
Exactly.
Like unless you're Gordon Ryan and you've got some, let's say, extracurricular vitamins. Yeah, it's really hard. Like, even with cardio too, not just powerlifting, like you can prioritize cardio or jiu-jitsu. Like you can do it all, like, but you have to pick what one's the most important and kind of adjust the other stuff to suit that so that you can still do that. Because like if you're weightlifting for jiu-jitsu and you're too sore from weightlifting to do jiu-jitsu, well, that really defeats the purpose of your whole plan.
Yeah, it's like going to school and majoring in two things at once. That's going to be very hard. But a lot of people, they major in one thing, minor in something else. And that's kind of the way you have to approach jiu-jitsu and strength and conditioning.
I don't want people to think that we're just picking on Gordon Ryan either. I think everybody at that level of jiu-jitsu is on some sort of SIE.
Yeah, like 99%.
Yeah, sipping
99%.
like a Capri Sun. Yeah.
Which is just a part of the sport. And I think it's totally fine just because everyone's doing it. And man, jiu-jitsu is more exciting because people do steroids. It wouldn't be as exciting. People wouldn't be as technical because they can't train as much, and they wouldn't be as physical. And I like watching these like roided up matches where they're just super freaking jacked and just going at it. I'd rather watch that than just completely natural heavyweights that are kind of like a little more I guess soft and stuff, right? I want to see these jacked up dudes.
And plus they wouldn't be able to train 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. Your body would just break down.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
No.
And what about you on TRT, Mike? Do you find it's still hard to recover if you're doing some lifting and stuff like that? Like, I don't think TRT is like some silver bullet, right? Still have to recover and, manage your training, right?
It definitely helps with recovery, 100%. Yeah. I've been off for the last month or so. That's probably why my energy levels have been a little bit down, but because I'm getting a physical coming up, I want to see where everything is. But it definitely helps with strength and conditioning.
Yeah,
100%. At my age, I don't think a 25-year-old needs it, or anything like that. But
I think it definitely helps. But I think sometimes people will be like, oh, they're on TRT, so they just have automatic, such a great advantage. But they still have to work to, to build muscle and train everything.
Oh, for sure. I still have to train 6 days a week, and I still have to show up every night and do as best I can, push myself as hard as I can against some of the, tough guys like black belts, you guys. It's crazy.
Yeah, same with steroids. It's not like, Gordon Ryan doesn't have to lift and, eat properly and, do all these things that are very hard still and train all the time to be good. It's not like he just injects himself and now he's the greatest in the world. So
yeah, TRT is just one part of a whole program you have to do. You have to eat right. Like you said, you have to eat right, train right, and supplement right.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's kind of synergetic that way. So we'll take a viewer question from Max.
Hey, what's up? My name's Max. Question is, what is the perfect, or at least your version of perfect way to broadcast and show jiu-jitsu competitions? Is it point-based? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? Is it submission only? Thanks, guys.
So first, we'll just start with the broadcast portion, just because, I think that my way of filming is the best way, just because like they're up close and with the camera and everything. They could do that with from further away and zoom in and out. But I find so many jiu-jitsu competitions and super fights just have really poor camera work, which is like crazy. My YouTube channel has better camera work than a lot of these professional organizations, and they got to improve their audio too. And a lot of them have poor commentary. Like I know like the Gordon Ryan Pena match, I didn't watch it, but I heard like it was really bad audio and it was really late too. Like they were like an hour and a half late and everything, and just like, yeah, that's not very professional. So I think that's one thing that's got to be improved first. But in terms of like rule set and stuff like that, I don't think no time limit is a good idea. It's like makes it super boring. I don't want to watch a no time limit. Probably 10, 15 minutes is good enough. And, it's just hard to, it's hard to declare a winner if there's no submission, but making it submission only is really crappy too. So probably realistically, it's best to have judges, but judges are so flawed too. So I think it's one of those situations where there's just no perfect answer. I don't know what you guys think.
I actually really like the point system. Like, I know a lot of people hate it, but like, especially with the IBJJF system, like you're rewarded points for doing things that are good grappling, like sweeping, passing guard, mounting. Like that's what you should be doing if you're a good grappler. Yeah. Like that's how you get your points. So if you scored more points, usually you probably did the better work. And I know there's the things where people say like, oh, well, he tried and almost finished 10 triangles, but then got his guard passed. Well, you didn't finish the 10 triangles. Like the reward for the submission is winning the match. If you didn't do it, like you didn't do it. It didn't work out. Like my reward I can't say like I almost passed guard. Well, you get the advantage. Same thing you got for almost doing the triangle. I really don't have a problem with that. I just think the only thing they'd really need to do for like a broadcast standpoint is like the stalling rules for IBJJF have to get fixed. You get way too much leeway, way too much time before stalling's actually enforced. And even when they do start enforcing it, the penalty for it being enforced early is so low that like one penalty, one advantage to the opponent. Like it's got to be more punishing if you stall.
Yeah, I agree. And I do like the point system too. I think that it's very well thought out, and yeah, it just creates exciting matches because no one wants to have someone get 4 points on them because they had their back taken. But if it's sub only, they don't care at all. It's like, whatever, I just won't get submitted. I'll just go super defensive. So yeah, I think that the point system is good, and maybe what the best thing to do is have a submission bonus, like monetary bonus, right? So, you know, maybe you get double your money. Like, you get only your show money if you win by points, and you get double if you get the submission. And I know that's tough because, you know, you don't want to like pay people less, and it's hard to pay athletes in jiu-jitsu. But I think money is like the biggest motivator in life for a lot of people, especially competitors. Like, that's what they're doing. They're doing it for money and the love, but obviously that's their job. They need to get money. So they're going to go hard in that submission.
I actually love that idea because then like we kind of said earlier, the whole, like, you'd still want to win. So you need to get your points, which would be like, get your sweep, get your pass, get your mount. And then you want more money. So now you're going to work really hard to submit, and you might get some more exciting matches that way, rather than just like, I'm in the good spot, I'm just going to stay here. People might take more chances, even though they have the points. Because I think that's the biggest problem with the IBJJF rule set, is once people get up in points, there's not really enough incentive to go for the finish when you could just get the win on the points.
Does the IBJJF Worlds, anything like that, do you win any money or anything?
I think Worlds at black belt, you get a relatively small cash prize for winning.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's
very small.
Yeah, I think it's like $5,000 or something like that. I could be wrong.
Or pans or anything like that.
I think it's just Worlds.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why a lot of athletes are kind of getting away from doing the IBJJF major tournaments and doing more like super fight type stuff, because, you know, why would you want to do anything for free or a low amount of money? You know, at first it makes sense. Like, when I remember fighting amateur, like MMA and Muay Thai, it's like you don't get paid. And then after a while you're like, I'm putting my body through this and the promoters are making so much money and I'm not getting paid. So it's really frustrating. And it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. If you can get paid, why would you want to do tournaments that you have to pay to get into?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make much sense. And to bring back to the point about submissions and points, I think that, like, watching a match that has points involved, like, you're more invested if they go to pass the guard, or you're more invested if they're going to get that second hook in for the back. But if it's sub only, it's like, okay, pass the guard, no big deal. There's no consequence to it. So, you know, I think points, people have it's like the opposite thing. People think that points would be more boring, but it makes it more exciting.
Yeah, and especially when you get a match that has a time limit. Like, these no time limit matches drive me crazy. Yeah. But when you have a points match and there's a minute left and someone's down like 1 or 2 points, you get some really exciting minutes, because like both competitors know what they have to do. Like, the guy who's up is just going to try and survive and not give up those points. And the guy in the bottom knows that it's not like he has to get a submission in 30 seconds, but he has to do something. And you're going to get, like, it does make for some really exciting matches that way.
100%, because, you know, what's like the motivation to go hard last 2 minutes if it's no submission has happened yet and it's sub only? Well, you might be more conservative because you're like, I don't want to get submitted and make a mistake and get submitted. So, you know, it doesn't really make much sense. But if you're like down on points, you're like, oh crap, I got to go hard to get my points up. Or if you're winning on points, you got to be really smart to not let them get you. So it makes it way more exciting that way.
Yeah, I'll use this as a time to shamelessly promote my super fight this weekend, which when this podcast come out will have already happened. But the format for that is now there's 4 black belts, and you fight each of the other 3 black belts in the bracket. And you get more points. So you get like 3 points if you submit someone, 2 points if you win on points, and 1 point if it's a ref's decision. And the winner of the tournament at the end is who had the most points. So, like, in theory, I could submit 2 people and lose to another guy by points. But if all of his wins are on points, I win the tournament because I got more points from submitting people. So I kind of like it that you can still win on points, but there is more of an incentive to win by submission. So I think a lot of, like we just talked about, like, you're going to get guys who, like, I'm up on points. Now I'm going to take the chance. Now I'm going to go for it. As opposed to like a standard bracket tournament where now I'm up on points, I just have to not lose.
Exactly. I think that's what the biggest problem in jiu-jitsu viewership is, people trying not to lose. If both guys want to win really bad, you're going to have exciting matches. If one or both guys just wants to not lose, it's going to be boring.
Yeah.
And, you know, same thing with MMA. It's the exact same thing. If you ever watched like a fight that looks more like a sparring match, like a kickboxing sparring match, it's like, this isn't fun at all. Like, this person does not want it. They're not trying to get the knockout or anything. They're just trying to not lose. And, you know, it's just super boring. So we'll take a question from Miss Leal.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great day. Yes, I wanted to ask you, what do you guys think about the Felipe Pena versus Gordon Ryan match? I know that it had a really strange ending, so I wanted to hear you talking about it. I also wanted to ask you, what are your predictions for the next ADCC? And what are your beliefs on the rising BJJ superstar, Mika Galvao? Thank you so much and have a great day. Greetings from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so I didn't watch that match just because I don't like watching competitive jiu-jitsu. I don't find it interesting at all. But you know, I watched like just like some like highlights and kind of heard about it, and you know, and I know what happened. So yeah, it seems like, you know, Pena kind of quit because, you know, he was dealing with the loss of Leandro Lo. And, you know, my opinion is that the reason he quit because he was just tired and figured that he couldn't submit Gordon. So it's just like, what's the point of this? I'm just going to tap and just end this. So, and I don't think that's like the end of the world either. I mean, you're grappling for 45 minutes and like, you know, you're just super tired and you can't feel you can't get a submission. What's the point of going 15 minutes longer, just try not to get submitted, or an hour longer, just try not to get submitted? So and that's the problem with the no time limit rule set. 45 minutes is too long to roll. If a guy gets tired and quits because they're tired, I don't think that we need to, like shame them. I don't know why people have to like shame people as if like they're better than them, as if they would never quit in that moment or they never had a moment of weakness in their life. So it's really, you know, I've had moments of weakness that I'm not like proud of, and I wouldn't want people like, you know, to be like talking on the internet like, you know, look what Jordan did, what a weak guy, right? So I don't like that whole kind of angle. People are going that way, like he has to live up to the standard of this, you know, you could never quit and whatever. So I don't really like that. I don't really like the whole thing of like just Gordon Ryan just like shit talking as much as he does, because I don't like the lack of respect in jiu-jitsu and people just not being nice people. You know, I think that more than jiu-jitsu, it's just good to be a good person in life, and I'd find that that's not the direction that jiu-jitsu has been going lately.
Yeah, my opinion on this match really changed in the last few days when more stuff came out about like Flo paid Felipe more money to do it because he didn't want to do it after the death of Leandro. And like, good on Felipe, he got the money, and you know, maybe he probably shouldn't have done it if his mind wasn't in the right place, but like, they're offering you the money. There's not a ton of money in jiu-jitsu, so take it. And I don't really blame him for tapping, to like not wanting to do it anymore. I mean, it's a no time limit match. He probably realized like, probably not going to win this. As a viewer, thank you for saving me another 2.5 hours or whatever it could have been. Like, at least now I know, like, oh, you recognized you weren't going to win this. You basically just said, I'm not going to win this. Like, that is what it is. Like, if people want to call him a quitter, like, you go fight Gordon for 45 minutes and tell me that you don't want to quit.
Exactly. I wouldn't want to roll for 45 minutes in a competition. That's too long.
Plus you got a guaranteed rematch.
Yeah. I mean, anytime I hear someone argue that into their contract, that they want a guaranteed rematch if they lose, I think that's usually a good indicator of your headspace going into the match, because I think people who are really confident they're going to win don't ask for a guaranteed rematch if they lose. Yeah,
in the sense too, it's like, you know, it makes sense for Pena not to be super confident. Like, you know, I don't know why people should like, I don't know why people are kind of like acting like he has to be so confident he's going to win. And because like Gordon is the best, like he's a super good grappler, the best of all time in Nogi as it currently stands. So, you know, in my opinion, it's almost like Pena was like pressured into this whole thing because of the 10-1 odds. You know, I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. I'd be like, damn, man, like, I don't want this. Like, I don't want to deal with this in my life. That just can we be nice to each other and just compete like normal?
Yeah.
And credit to Pena, he actually did pretty well for most of that match. Like, Gordon's been really steamrolling through people. Like, we saw a couple weeks ago what he did to Pedro Mourinho, who's a double gold world no-gi champ, and it didn't look like that with Pena at all. He did a lot of good things right. Like, the way he was using 50-50 to really like stall out Gordon's passing and control him was pretty impressive. So like, I think a lot of people thought Gordon was going to like buzzsaw through him and make it look really embarrassing. And if anything, it actually showed that like it's still pretty competitive matchup.
Yeah. And how would that look if it was a 15-minute match, you know, because Pena likely had to, conserve energy. So did Gordon, though. But I mean, like, they could really go for it more and give us more of an exciting, spectator-friendly match. And it just changes the whole dynamic of it. I also think that, he agreed to the fight and he was like shit talking during it. And, even though, he's facing the death of his friend Leandro Lo, but it's like, your emotions change so much when you're dealing with grief. So like it can be normal to, you're feeling like fine one moment and then, the next moment you're just feeling like total crap, so yeah, I can understand that.
Well, that match made me I think that Andre Galvao may have a little bit of hope.
Yeah,
but I still think Gordon's going to win. But I don't think it's going to be as like I thought before watching this match, because he didn't steamroll through Pena.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to heavily lean Gordon in that match. Yeah, but hopefully we get a Pena and Gordon rematch at ADCC in the finals of their division. I think they're in the same bracket, the plus 99. So
it's very similar to MMA. It's when like Khamzat Chimaev, like when he fought Gilbert Burns, like he still won. But he looked, mortal. He didn't look like, how he did before. Same thing with John Jones. It's like his last performances, he looks very mortal. So that's why I think it's important never to put anyone on the pedestal where they're like, this is some god, amazing person that, can't catch up to them. Everyone can be caught up to. They lose already just going into it. Like Anderson Silva, like bring back MMA references. Like anytime he fought, the person will lose going into it because they're so scared. But it's like you can't have that, fear. It's like Chris Weidman when he knocked out Anderson, he wasn't afraid. He was going for it. And I think that's really what, brought him success, as opposed to some guys like Stephan Bonner who was scared shitless. And then, just like Anderson toyed with him.
Yeah, and for this match specifically too, I think it'll be interesting going forward because like Felipe did do a lot of things that gave Gordon problems, and hopefully some of the people in that bracket at ADCC are watching that match and going, okay, like what did Felipe do that specifically gave Gordon problems, and maybe how can I implement that into my game? And I think like when you see a matchup like this where Felipe has some stylistic things he does that really trip Gordon up, if more people start doing that, we might start to see new answers to some of the things Gordon does. And that's why, like, for these athletes, like these matches on that stage can be risky because people can figure you out. And if you're a guy like Gordon who makes basically a living being on the top and talking trash, like if you start to look human and people start to figure out, ways to counter your game, it's dangerous.
Yeah, I think the way to beat Gordon Ryan is the exact same way he beats other people. You need to take Gordon Ryan down and you need to control him with body lock passing, so he can't get underneath your legs and stuff like that. You need to tire him out. You need to cook him from the mount and stuff like that, because that stuff works. Why would it not work on Gordon? You know what I mean?
There's a great channel, Less Impressed, More Involved, and they go pretty deep into Gordon Ryan's game and how you could beat him if you were going to train to fight him. It's really good channel.
Yeah, shout out to Less Impressed. Less Involved, More Impressed. No, more. Man.
I
Less Impressed, More Involved.
Yeah, Less Impressed, More Involved. Yeah, sorry, Jake. That's the name that runs it, right, Jake?
Jake Lewitt.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry for butchering it, Jake. But we love your channel.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I don't want to talk shit about other channels because I like a lot of other channels. Like I do really enjoy them. So I don't want to sound like this, but in terms of how much I learn from others, Jake's channel is the one I learn from. Like I actually learn from his, and like because I don't watch competitive jiu-jitsu, so it helps bridge the gap of stuff that I could watch myself, but he kind of watches it for me and breaks it down. So yeah, I actually learn from that channel. Where the other ones, I like them and they're great, but sometimes it's just more entertainment, more that angle for me, as opposed to like learning, which his channel is great for.
Yeah, Less Impressed, More Involved. I just wanted to get that out there. So.
Yeah.
So as someone who doesn't watch a lot of pro jiu-jitsu, the second half of our viewer question, have you seen any of Mika Galvão? Like
no, not really.
Oh, you haven't watched any of his?
Like I've seen highlights of him, and he looks really good. But I think the important thing to remember too is like he's not doing anything special. He's got great fundamentals, does all the right things, but he's not some like god or anything like that. He has the same tools everyone else has, but he's just really good at them. So he's really like I've seen him not like in depth, but what it looks like to me, he's very fast, has great intuition, and knows where to be and knows what technique to use when. But again, the techniques themselves, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's just fundamentals, which I think is like amazing. I love that because I've stressed like fundamentals. That's what works.
It's actually really interesting you say that because his game reminds me a lot of your game.
Yeah.
Like there's not a ton of holes. Everything is done pretty technically correct. There's a lot of speed, athleticism, and clearly strength. Like he's not a huge guy, but he competes with people bigger than him. he really has a very well-rounded game, and he's actually my pick to win that division in ADCC this year, and that's a stacked division. Yeah, for sure. Because, not talking shit about other competitors or anything like that, but I think that Mika just has such great fundamentals, and where some others might rely on more the stuff that they're good at, what they specialize in. So like maybe some are really good at leg locks, getting underneath people and tie them up into the saddle and stuff like that, which is great and works great. But I think that he has a more well-rounded tool set than most competitors in his division.
Yeah, the ADCC trials where he had the guy in Coyote Guard jumped up his back and flipped and landed in an armbar. It was athletically and very impressive. He is very athletic. I find it's amazing to watch.
And his game is so well-rounded that he's not afraid to take those risks, because he just really trusts in the rest of his game to if something goes wrong, he's going to get back to a good position. That usually is really telling to me when I watch people compete and they're not afraid to take the risk from the top and go for something aggressive or take an aggressive chance from the bottom, because they know they're going to be okay. You see a lot of guys who they'll get in their A game and they almost refuse to leave that zone of their A game for fear of what happens if they have to play the B game. And it really does impress me when I see a guy who really just doesn't seem to have a lot of holes. Yeah, exactly. And that's my mentality too. Same as his. If I mess up, I'll figure out a way to get to a good position again. So I think that's something that really helps with confidence, and just helps you, to get your techniques. You don't have to worry about stuff.
When your fundamentals are so sharp, you can take those chances because you have those to back up, right?
Exactly, because you know how to address these bad positions. If you get your guard pass, to get underhooks and stuff like that. So there's no hesitation. There's no being stuck somewhere bad. It's what to do. So, and he's so fast and athletic that really helps that too. So this one is from Gustavo.
Hey Jordan, what's up? For you, what is the top 3 things that a blue belt must know in order to grow in the belt itself until the purple one? Greetings from Brazil, buddy. See ya.
So yeah, I think people ask this a lot, where it's what's the difference between belts? And I think it's more simple than people realize. It's just making less mistakes. It's just, you see a white belt or blue belt and they just make so many more mistakes than purple belts. And, obviously having more tools in your toolkit helps too, but it's all the fundamentals. It's doing things like we talked about earlier. It's if you get guard pass, don't reach up and let them have all these great grips on you. But you'll see, a blue belt do that still. And it's they need to not do that. And then they're more ready for the purple belt. But it's so many things like that. So many things that, I have another, it'll be out by the time the podcast comes out, but it's 2 blue belts rolling, and you see just such small mistakes. It's that they never should make, but they don't know any better. So for example, one has a triangle on someone, and then the guy passes, and the other one could have easily just stiff armed him, grabbed his sleeve and stiff armed him and escaped that way. And just little things, the one let himself get swept super easy. So it's you can't do these little mistakes. You need to be able to address these type of things. And and then it's for all belts, but there's such discrepancy in different belts for different gyms, and you'll see brown belts and black belts at some gyms just making horrible mistakes where it's why are you taking that grip? What's the point of that grip? And but so yeah, it's just a tough thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I can't give you I don't think there's an answer where it's if you're good at Kimura, armbar, and triangle, you're purple belt. I don't think that exists. But if I had to try and sum it up with 3 things, I would say a lot like you mentioned, defensively sound. Don't stick arms where they don't need to be. When people pass, you're always trying to get good position. Arms in tight. Getting controls, getting frames, stuff like that. I think as a blue belt, you should probably understand guard retention, as opposed to just someone has started a pass, I'm going to escape. You should understand, how do I stop a pass and maintain my guard? Because it's a lot easier to retain guard than it is to escape side control. And I think it's just some of the concepts that make the difference between a blue belt and a purple belt.
Yeah, bad things should happen to you only because, the other person's good, not because you make just dumb mistakes that are super obvious. And a good example is, I did that collab with Jedi. I broke down his grappling footage, and man, Jedi's really good. Jedi is a very technical purple belt, but what's the difference between him and a black belt? Because you see, watching him grapple, he does a lot of the same stuff I do, right? But he also makes just some small mistakes, just like little ones, and which he needs to improve upon to get his brown belt. Even though likely he could probably be a brown belt right now, he's been training 7 years and he's really good. But it's like, yeah, it's just these like small, tiny mistakes, which you'll see in the video too, where if you're like, you need to. A black belt shouldn't make those mistakes. They should know what to do in those situations. So I think it's just like a range of like white belt, you make all these mistakes. Black belt, you shouldn't make these mistakes. Like you should only lose to like only bad things should happen if the person is like they implemented their game, you just didn't do something dumb.
That's good to hear, because now I can shore up my game. That's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to cut out all the little bad habits and little mistakes that I make. And I'm not joking. I'm not saying this because I'm friends with Jordan or I go to his gym. Watching your videos literally help me. Yeah. Getting T-Rex arms and don't let them grab my head and stuff like that. That helps so much. Yeah, man, because all this stuff is just like little mistakes people make, and that I see so clearly because, like I'm doing this a long time, but most people don't see this stuff. So, they don't even realize they're making these simple mistakes. And, my whole goal, like my channel, I want to put everything out there you need to know for jiu-jitsu, like literally everything. And then people, they watch it and then they'll be very good at jiu-jitsu, because I don't think jiu-jitsu is as complicated as most people make it out to be. And I want to simplify it. I haven't like got everything out there yet because it takes a lot of time, but I think like eventually in like maybe 1 more year, maybe less, I'll have everything out there that someone needs if they watch like at least the majority of the videos, and it'll just like night and day difference in their jiu-jitsu. If like the how to literally never get submitted video that I'm going to do, I think that's going to be my best video ever, and just completely change people's games, because it sounds like clickbait, but it's not clickbait, because it's just, it's so important, the stuff I'm going to say, and it'll be like revolutionary in people's minds. Like, oh God, if you can implement everything in that video, then you'll be way more technically sound. The best thing you could have ever told me a couple of weeks ago is that I wasn't dynamic enough, because it's true. Yeah. And sometimes it sucks or doesn't feel good to hear that, but I want to get better. So I like it when I hear stuff like that, because then I know exactly what to do. Like when I roll Joey, I'll say, what did I do wrong? He'll say, well, you did this, this, and this wrong. And then the next time I roll him, I try not to do that. And next time I roll you, I'll try to, be more dynamic or try other things. You know what I mean? Try to shore up my weaknesses. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, no problem. A lot of it's like not so much things you need to do right, because so many people focus on that. It's more like you got to stop doing things that are wrong, right? So people, when they want to get better, it's like, oh, I got to learn this and this and that. But it's like, no, you got to stop doing this, this, and that. Like, you got to stop doing specific things, right? And they don't quite realize that. So yeah, I'm like really happy that I can provide that to people, because that's what I think I'm specifically good at, is like understanding what people are doing wrong and what is right fundamentally. And it's really cool to have that approach for jiu-jitsu, not just showing like random jiu-jitsu techniques like most channels have been doing for like the last decade. Yeah, no, I really enjoy it. Yeah, I appreciate that. So let's see if we got time for one more. Yeah, we got time for one more really quick. All right, so this last question is from Brandon.
Hi, Jordan. My name is Brandon. I'm a blue belt from the west coast of Canada. I am coming off a 7-year layoff, and I just returned in May, and I immediately fell back in love with the sport. I am now training 5 days a week, and I'm dedicated to training full time for at least the rest of the summer. I have the imposter syndrome coming in, though. I'm doing what I can to better myself in terms of coming to the open mat, staying after class, watching your videos. With that being said, there was a tournament coming up this weekend that I was planning to sign up for, but my confidence got the best of me, and I had decided against it, especially when I was thinking about the other blue belts who would have been going against me and all the time they've been putting in compared to me. But now I'm looking ahead, and I see that there are some tournaments in the fall that I'd like to work towards and really try building my confidence in the meantime. Now my question is, do you have any advice for someone who is coming back into the scene and is wanting to compete but is a bit apprehensive? I appreciate what you do, and I'm loving the podcast so far. Love the videos as well.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm glad you like the podcast and the videos. And I just want to address first just like imposter syndrome. So many people have imposter syndrome and it stops them from doing the things they want to do. But imposter syndrome, it's like it's not needed. It just doesn't help people at all. It's like, you know, everyone should have confidence they can do whatever they want to do and be the best at it, because why can't you? Because the people are the best. Why are they the best? You know, a lot of it's just mentality. So I think, you know, I would try to get that idea out of your head, and I would try to take the same approach, you know. Well, I would try to understand, like, you know, like Joey's wife, Paige, she went out there, you know, no preparation and still kicked butt, right? So, you know, why can't you? Like, you could do it, no problem. But even if you don't, even if you lose, you're still going to learn so much, and it's going to prepare you for the next tournament. And, you know, losing isn't the end of the world, especially when you're more of like, you know, like a recreational type player. Like, nobody cares if you lose. Nobody at all. I can't think of one person in your life that would care. Like, would your wife or kids care? Would your coach or training partners? Probably not, right? Losing is a part of jiu-jitsu, and you won't be the first person on the team to lose, and you won't be the last either.
Yeah, just do it. Like, if you're thinking about competing, just do it. Get the experience, and even if it doesn't go your way, you're going to learn something about your game. If you lose, like, something's going to obviously happen to cause you to lose, and that's something you can go back to the gym and fix. And you're also going to learn how to compete again, like how to do it. What's it feel like? What's the process like? How does it feel to go against someone who's actively trying 100% to win? And if you're worried about losing and like perception, just know that like anyone who judges you for losing or thinks less of you, that's just someone that you don't need in your circle. Like, get rid of that person.
Those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter, right?
Yeah, 100%.
If you guys like the podcast, make sure to let us know, leave a comment on YouTube, or just, you know, send us a message on Instagram. We always appreciate that, and we'll see you guys next time.